Scratch the Vinyl.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Scratch the Vinyl. It's been great. It's been great doing this podcast. We've been really digging in. Myself, Cain Stevens. We've got the man, the myth himself, the party monster himself, Randy Wilson, Mr. Chill up in here. And, you know, unfortunately, guys, I do have the rubber chicken with me, and she can kind of, you know, I think it's a female, this rubber chicken, but it could stand in. Unfortunately, we don't have Brooke on here, but we do have a worthy candidate to help us co-host. And also, he's going to be another musical guest. So we have Todd Guthrie joining us, you know, instead of Brooke. Unfortunately, Brooke couldn't be here. So, Todd, how are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. Got my coffee. It's a good day.
It is a good day when the coffee's rolling. How about you, Randy? Do you got the coffee rolling as well? What do you drink?
I got my coffee and I'm ready to go. It is too bad that Brooke couldn't join us today, but you know, Scratch the Vinyl always goes on.
I should have put on red lipstick. You know, I have a red hat on it. That's
no.
So welcome to the show, Todd. You know, this is a new podcast. You were on my other podcast, the Cain Stevens Super Show, and you were a great guest. And I've been promising you, because we only had like a portion of a show to do because I was rushed on time. You actually did my 50th episode with that show, and I promised you a full show, and then it was like, now it's just a no-brainer because we're here. You know, you're going to be doing the benefit with us on the 21st, which we'll get into.
Yes.
And so it just makes sense to have you on Scratch the Vinyl. I mean, you're a musician. You love music like we do. So
yeah,
it's going to be a good show. So do either of you guys, I hate to put you on the spot. You know, Randy, I don't know if you have any, you know, Todd, we like to start with a quote or lyric or something usually, but if we don't, we'll just move on to something. Did you have any lyrics that stand out in your mind just right off the bat, or is that putting you on the spot too bad?
So I've been listening to that song by Noah Kahan, Stick Season, and there's a lyric in there that says, I dream each night of a version of you that I may not have, but I did not lose. And there's something about that catches you, makes you think of that one person maybe you know, that maybe you really care about or you really thought about, but you just don't have. And it's a great lyric in a song.
It is a great lyric. I mean, it's crazy when you do when you think about that sort of thing. I mean, I think I read somewhere the other day that if you're dreaming of somebody, supposedly they're thinking of you, or, you know, like one of those things. So it kind of puts me in that vein, but it could be different. What do you think those lyrics mean to you, Todd? Like when you hear lyrics like that, which are very good lyrics, how does that make you feel?
Actually, stuff like that. I love music because music for me pulls me back in history. Things that's happened, and you hear a lyric like that. There's a couple of old relationships that and ex-marriages and stuff that you go, oh wow, you know, you hear something like that and it trips something in you, trips the memory. The great thing about any kind of music, and I have literally listened from everything from mariachi to Tibetan metal music, and that's a whole story in itself. It's listening to it, and it's remembering. It brings back memories, and you hear a lyric like that, and it's awe. It's an awe thing because there's a lot of stuff it brings back to mind.
Yeah, I just think this is a perfect example of, you know, the artist is obviously writing about something personal to them, but we're able to take that and relate it to something in our life or a relationship that we're thinking of in our head. And I think that's always one of the most beautiful things about music and great lyric writing.
Well, music's a time machine, right? I mean, it's our own personal DeLorean to where we want to go anywhere in time. And that's what I've always loved about it. It's kind of been like a blessing and a curse for me personally, because when I think about music, like I'll take, for example, I would drone out and I hate to use that word because it sounds so drudgy, but I would drone out the music all day long to drown out work and everything around me, right? But I would go on these mental trips, and I would go to the past. I would go to girls that I broke up with. I would go to heartache. I would go to happiness, all in a matter of, even a full album, right? Like, it's crazy what music does to you. And I think that's what this song really does.
Yeah, great songs will help you cope with almost every relationship you've ever had, to be quite honest.
Absolutely. Well, that was a great bring up, Randy. That was that was an unexpected one, but I love, and I don't know why, because you're a very thoughtful guy. You sit up late nights, you're always out late anyway. You kind of like, I don't even think you sleep. I think you're actually a vampire, to be honest with you, Randy.
Well, there has been some reasons for people to believe that, because I did kind of go nonstop for a long time in my life, but it's just that this is what we love about music and our connection to it, and it's like, this is kind of a current song, so this is something that kind of got stuck in my head recently, and so I love older music. I grew up on 70s, 80s music for the most part. And that to me was a time period that had a lot of great writers, and songs were really written that way. And so when I hear a song today on the radio that can catch my attention like that, I think that's a great song.
Yeah, it does the trick. It does exactly what they had intended. And that's the beauty of writing and the art of music, right? Is that it brings out the poetry in such a visceral way that it really taps into you. It's like when you watch a movie, of course, right? We talked about this many times.
Yeah, especially when you can emotionally connect to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if you can't, like, even if you don't like the movie, but not necessarily like horror movie music, like bong and ring, ring, you can connect to that too. But when you watch like Game of Thrones, for example, what really makes that show, and it's fantastic writing and acting, but it's the impeccable music. Go back and listen to the entire soundtrack of Game of Thrones throughout, in new House of the Dragon, and it's like, man, you go on a trip and what's crazy is you can remember the entire show in entirety as you're listening to it. And it's the perfect way to really set the stage. All right. So I don't know if you guys heard or not, but there was a recent music death that really kind of affected me in a strange way. And I'll tell you guys why. I saw that the lead singer of Crazy Town, Shifty Shell Shock, I believe his name was, I should probably give his proper name. I think his name was Seth Binzer, but he was a producer and a very good musician, a rap. He kind of fused, just like Limp Bizkit did back in the late 90s, early 2000s, rap rock. And they had a massive success with Butterfly, which I'm sure you guys have all heard at one point. And if you haven't, I guarantee if you heard just a snippet of it, it would probably, set something off in you guys' mind. I mean, it was a massive hit. But anyways, so he recently died in the last couple of days. And I guess now the manager has come out and said what we call kind of worried about or wondered. He was an addict. He actually did die. He suffered from addiction, and unfortunately it took him at the age of 49. It's another tragic story. Did you guys hear about that?
I just recently heard about it. You said it was a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
This is another example of, tragedy for a great artist that was in some ways still moving toward his peak, really. Because I think that album you were talking about came out in the late 90s, early 2000s. And so he was just still very active, even with a lot of these addiction problems that apparently he's been struggling with for quite a while.
Well, apparently, I don't know if you guys remember this too. He was on Celebrity Rehab with Dr. Drew years ago. And man, it was wild watching him on the episodes because he basically was disappearing all the time to go get high. You could tell that he was having a hard time with it. And I think for a while he even kicked it and got himself together. But, unfortunately, just like Scott Weiland, all these talents whatever haunted this guy, and you can go back and you can listen to the songs, you kind of get a snippet of whatever haunted him enough to keep doing it. He just kept doing it until it was too late.
Yeah, I run across that on social media. I like Facebook or something where stuff pops up. And God, that's just 49. My God, that's terrible.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, in the you and I, before we came on air, Todd, we were talking about potential, and so I wanted to bring it up with Randy. Now that we're all together, it's the loss of. You said the loss of potential, and you nailed it, because that's what it is. It is the loss of. These were such great minds and great talents, and their potential has been smashed by these addictions. It's like it's Hendrix, right? It's Morrison, it's all of these. It's Kurt Cobain, it's Amy Winehouse. It's so many tragic people. You could name it endlessly, but I mean, we've said this before, Randy. Imagine what they would have been, right? And what music would have came out of these people in beauty and art had they continued on.
I said back in 1981, I had a chance to see the Rolling Stones, and I thought at the time, like, man, I got to go see them because they're getting older. Probably never, might be the last time to ever see them again, and they're still performing now. So you take an example of one of the most iconic bands of all time in the Rolling Stones, and they have now transcended 7 decades and still put out music and still put out great shows. It's a tragic, sad story when you see these super talented people that die early, or unfortunately succumb to some addictions because of maybe the fame and fortune or the industry taking its toll. And we have examples of great artists that go a long period of time. Dolly Parton, 7 generations of music, still putting out great music. It's so the potential is always out there, and it is sad when it's cut short.
Well, and I hate that I hadn't listened to their I hadn't listened to The Gift of Game, their first big album, in years. And so it's sad when this stuff happens, and it's good in the same, because it made me remember. So I went back, and as soon as I heard this, I was like instantly sad for some reason. I'm like, man, that's just it's weird watching like our heroes die and all that. Not that I was like as big of a Crazy Town fan as like some of the other bands, but it has a place in my heart. So I listened to the album, and it just like instantly brought back all these feelings to me. It was great from start to finish, for one, and I would tell anybody to go back and listen to, at the very least, listen to Crazy Town, The Gift of Game. But also, it just, I don't know, it just gave me this incredible feeling and sad feeling all at once. And it was just, I don't know, it was just kind of wild. I had to bring it up to you guys because it's been pulling on my my heartstrings a little bit. But man, it's just another one gone, but won't be forgotten.
I mean, you look at it, that was 25 years ago now.
Yeah.
And so when you have to put things in perspective of where you were at 25 years ago, that really was just a blink of an eye. And so it takes you back to a place, yet that's what's crazy, because now there's a point in time now where you're older, but you still can connect back to that time period, even though it doesn't seem that long ago, but it was 25 years.
Yeah. Well, what are some bands you guys can think of when you guys were a little later in life, but I mean, let's say 25 years before? Are there any bands that like stick out to you where like 25 years later you're thinking about it, and it just kind of affects? I mean, for you guys are a little older than me. It's like it's even further along. Like, you guys can remember bands from when you were in your high school days, right? And you can think of that, but can you think of any like ones where tragedy happened, where every time you listen to it, it kind of like affects you or makes you think about it?
I don't know. Not really. Life is this big circle of being born and then, going through your life and then ending it. And, you see that in your family and your friends. Personally, no. Off the top of my head, I can't think of anything. The biggest thing, I guess, there was no death, but was when the Beatles broke up in the 70s. And that was, I mean, and that was a big deal because, you know, they were like riding high. That is the one that comes to mind. But I mean, again, but it's just, and then you listen to their music so many years past, you know, 40 years, 50 years. And it's potential thing. I understand why they stopped, but God, where would they have been had they gone on? I mean, how could they got any bigger, or would the music shifted?
Well, I say this all the time, and we've maybe talked about this before, Cain, but I think everybody goes through a Beatles phase. Like at some point, you do sit down and start listening to a lot of their number one hits. And I remember for me, it was after John Lennon died, I kind of focused on his solo stuff for a little bit and man, it just draws you into this whole big realm of music between all of them. And then you get caught up in what George Harrison was doing at the time. They all went through their own individual phases and still were never quite not the Beatles. Like you watch that the documentary on Netflix, and you see that those guys were still, man, they were still mates. They were just moving in life, you know, life was just changing, but they were still soulmates until each one of them, you know, until both John and George passed away. And, unfortunately, John, that was a tragedy. His potential was still unlimited as far as I'm concerned. And the only thing we can take from that now is his sons have over the course of time started to put out some music, and you can really hear his voice in both Sean and Julian. And man, I'm glad you said that. I always go back to, there's this time period in my life where you can really connect to so many Beatles songs. And it's back to what we were talking about earlier, just great lyrics and great songwriting. And so it is a tragedy when we lose some of those guys early. And unfortunately, in this case, what we've been talking about, addiction, and, we lose them in a tragic way, something that could be fixed. If we could have got him help, he'd still be making music. So.
Well, there are some examples of bands who do move on from tragedies, like that. One that I can bring up, and you might not be familiar with them, but I am, is a Static X. Okay, Static X was also a band from like the early 90s, 2000. Wayne Static, he was the guy with like the massive hair sticking straight up, and he was this full, just this guy in metal that everybody loved. Okay, then he died. And they have since put on a frontman who basically, he's dressed in like a zombie-like look, but he looks exactly like him and he sings exactly like him. So when you go to these shows, it's like, oh my gosh, Wayne Static is up there doing Static X again, and it's such a great tribute to him. And they do new music. So it's like, I know it doesn't work for everybody, but that is like an example of, and there are a lot of bands who've moved on. But man, seriously, you guys just got me like in my feels today with the beat and stuff. Oh,
you just reminded me of one of my time period, and of course, AC/DC.
Yeah.
Bon Scott, basically drank himself to death. And Brian Johnson comes on basically Back in Black was AC/DC's 7th album. And now most people today don't know any difference. I mean, that was just, it's like they rebooted and, kept going. So the potential was always there. But, those of us of that time period remember Bon Scott before that, and it was great. They were great before that. So, like you said, it's timeless. It just keeps going.
It is, man. It's exciting stuff. Well, I'm glad we got to talk about it a little bit. We should probably scratch the vinyl now and get to our guests a little bit. We've got a lot to unpack with this guy. We're scratching the vinyl right now and moving on to our next segment. Todd Guthrie. Yeah, I'm so glad that you decided to come on the show. I'm even more glad that you were the first one to sign up and hold your hand up and say, when I was thinking about doing the benefit for Willow at Kelly's, you were the first one to put your hand up and say, you know what, I'll do it, and said you would help me put together. So I really do appreciate you doing it. But tell me, let's learn a little bit about you as a musician. But first off, tell me why you were so interested in coming on. Like what pulled at your heartstrings with it and made you want to get onto this benefit?
I have two sons, and my youngest son has autism, and this was diagnosed in the early 2000, something like that. He was about three. He was three at the time, and he found out he had Asperger's. Well, they no longer segment that out in autism. It's all one umbrella is autism. And although we never had to have surgeries or anything else, we went through the phase of trying to communicate with this child because he was 3.5, I think, by the time he actually spoke.
Mm-hmm.
So this is I can't understand what they have gone through, but I can appreciate it because there's so much more help and there's so much more stuff that we know about the various things now that we didn't have when my son was 3. And it was a struggle to try to figure out how to communicate and just he's a normal kid, but there were certain things, and love him to death, but there were days it was tiring. And even as he grew older, there was just, because of the antisocial aspect of the autism and especially the Asperger's, a lot of stuff that we totally learned by ourselves on the fly and tried to take what they had told us, which was not nearly the information out there now. So when I heard you were going to do this, it's absolutely, I'm on board 1,000%, because I would have loved to had somebody come in and say, hey, what can we do for you?
Yeah.
And that is the main reason, because having a child with some kind of special needs, be it whatever, there's some long days, and it's tough.
Exactly. Well, and Spina Bifida, which is what Willow has, and autism are different, but what you're talking about is absolutely right. These are kids with disabilities. I think I have a couple family members who are on the spectrum as well and have, are autistic, and I see the struggles that they have, but I look at it as something that we're going to look at down the line as maybe, just maybe, it's more of an evolved mind than we understand. And so I think in 20 years from now, I truly think that with them studying it more and with them, a lot of things has changed since your child, but they're going to look at it as an evolved mind and they're going to know how to deal with it in a different way. And that's why we're doing something like this to help, Willow and her dad, because she has spina bifida. We're going to, we're not really qualified to stand up there and talk about spina bifida, but we can bring awareness to it, right? And we can help out someone who has had these struggles. Mike has missed a lot of. Mike is my friend, the dad of Willow, has missed a lot of work because of it. He has to fly to Philadelphia for these surgeries. They have to do all this stuff. So I really do appreciate you getting on board with this show. It's going to be a great show, isn't it?
Oh, it's going to be awesome. I can't wait. And yeah, it's good. I can't wait to listen to some of the music of some of the other guys, especially Low on Cash Band. believe I've heard of you guys, but that was like before social media, you know.
Yeah, we played for a long time. I personally, and I know Randy loves music and live music. I as a musician am always excited when there's other people on the bill because I could give or take me being part of, like it's never really about me. I love being around other musicians, watching how they do things. I'm a huge critic of myself, so I like to watch other people and see what they're doing and kind of like take all the good things and try to make myself better. So I can't wait, man. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I just want to thank you personally for getting involved. Whenever we talk about tragedies or things that are out of our control that affects children, our friends' children. I mean, anywhere we can help, man. I love everybody that rallies around that idea, and we are getting such a great, overwhelming response for this project, and I'm really looking forward to it.
I love it. I mean, I love it's at the end of the day, it's about giving back, whether it's music or help or whatever. That's what makes the world go round, is the helping others, standing behind them, helping them with whatever. It's all about giving.
Yeah. Well, it's nice having musicians that are willing to, and a lot of musicians are, but there's a lot of bands out there who wouldn't do a benefit, knowing that they're not getting any compensation. Everyone's doing this for the good of the cause, right? And that's the thing. And it's just a great thing to bring everybody together. July 21st, everybody, if you're listening now, July 21st at Kelly's Pub, come out. It's a Scratch the Vinyl event. It's kind of a launch party for us, and it's bringing awareness to Spina Bifida. It's for Willow. We have some great musicians. So Todd Guthrie is one of them. We're going to have Luther James, which I'm excited to have on. We're going to have Caterpillar. Caterpillar's from Los Angeles. He's been playing for years, and he's a fantastic musician. We have Luke S. Williams from Iowa coming in, and then we have the Low on Cash Band reuniting for this event. I mean, I've been retired due to health issues and everything for years now, but I just thought there's no better way to come out and play 6 or so songs than to do it for this, get the boys back together and have a great time for a good cause.
What do we always say, Cain? Music is our therapy. And what better way than music to shine a light on a little girl that needs our help?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody, we got some great sponsors to mention here, so we're going to get to those right now. We're going to run the commercial for the Elegant Sasquatch, get those beard balms and get that product for those stinky beards. Also, I want to mention Roots Music Shop. Ryan is the best in the business. His shop speaks for itself. Go in there, get your instruments repaired, and find yourself a great deal on guitar pedals, anything instrument wise. Ryan has you covered, as well as vinyl records. We also have Liberty Contracting. Stan Liberty is a world-class guitar player, and he's also a world-class concrete guy, and his company is top-notch. So get a hold of Liberty Contracting here in Lincoln. And last but not least, let's talk about Sly Ink Tattoo, everybody. Sly Ink Tattoo with Bryce. Stop going to Becky's Boring Ink Emporium and getting those dolphin tattoos like Randy wants to get on his back. Get something great. Get something cool. Get a hold of Bryce at Sly Ink Tattoo. And now a word from the Elegant Sasquatch.
Hey there, human friend. Are you tired of your beard looking like a bird's nest after a windstorm?
Whoa, what? Who's there?
It's just me, your friendly neighborhood Sasquatch. I couldn't help but notice your, rustic beard situation.
Right? Thanks for pointing that out, Bigfoot. But what can I do about it?
Fear not, my follicle challenge friend. Introducing the Elegant Sasquatch Grooming Company. We specialize in grooming products that'll make your beard as majestic as a redwood tree.
Elegant Sasquatch? Sounds fancy. What do they have?
We've got everything a discerning Sasquatch or human needs to keep their facial foliage in top condition. Beard washes to cleanse away the forest grime, beard balms to tame those wild whiskers, beard oils to nourish and hydrate, and beard butters to make it as soft as a bunny's fur.
Wow, that's quite the lineup. Why should I choose the Elegant Sasquatch, though?
Because, my friend, we believe in sophistication for our outer beast. Just because you're a Sasquatch or a human doesn't mean you can't be classy.
I never thought I'd hear a Sasquatch talk about sophistication. All right, you've convinced me. Where can I find these products?
Head on over to the elegantsasquatchco.etsy.com and use the code SUPERSHOW to save 20%. Your beard will thank you.
Thanks, Sasquatch. I'll make sure to check it out. And hey, maybe next time we meet, my beard will be as elegant as yours.
Now that's the spirit, my friend. Happy grooming.
Well, Todd, let's get into a little more about you, man. I didn't get to talk to you much about the musician stuff when you were on my show, but I do want to get into it now. It's more pertinent with this show. Let's talk about your journey in music, when you started getting into music, why you do it, and just kind of all the intricacies of that. So let's start with when did you start getting into music, and how long have you been playing?
Oh my God, that's a great question, because music has been one of those things that's always been there. In school, you were involved. I mean, at least back in the '60s and '70s, you were involved in the Christmas programs, the holiday programs, spring programs. There was in the band, whether it would be band or choir or something. And so I've always done some kind of music. Interesting story. In third grade, 1960, God knows what, there was a program in the school, and you brought your guitar in, and they taught you 3 chords. And if I remember correctly, it was E, A, and D. And the one song that I remember was Shoe Fly Shoe. And it's an old, some people will have to Google that stuff. But that's the kind of simple, very simple song. So that's when I actually started playing, put it down, because I was a young kid, and the neck of the guitar is ginormous, and should have stayed with it. I'd have been so much further along. And then got divorced the second time, and divorced the first. When I got divorced the first time, my ex-wife said her mom and stuff they were going through her storage unit, and she said, I got a bunch of stuff in there. Do you want it? And absolutely. So this must have been 2004, I think, something like that. So I went in there and I grabbed the stuff, and lo and behold, here's my old Harmony H945 guitar. So I started plinking on it. Now, people who know me knows my job for almost my whole entire life was production welding. That was my profession. And anybody who's done any kind of production stuff knows that it's ungodly stressful, because everything has a deadline, or you're picking up because somebody else didn't get something done, so you're doing extra. So the stress level's like here, and I found that going down there and plunking on that gold guitar was able to release my anxiety and my stress and absolutely fade away into music. And that's where it started. And I sat in my basement for I don't know how long playing. Went to Mark at Ron's Music here in Grand Island, say, this is what I've been doing. what do I do next? I have no clue. You see the guys up on stage, and he says, well, you got to go to open mics. That's interesting. He kind of give me, he says, 4 songs that you know real good, go up there and play. I'll give you time. Okay. So I started doing that. And I liked it so much, I started playing for Kearney Music Live in Kearney. And I think I missed, of all the open mics that they had over there, in 4 years, I think I missed 3 days that they were due to weather. And it just took off from there, and started buying better equipment. Decided that this is something I want to do. I actually want to perform. I want to actually do this. So through the open mics, I've met musicians and bands and all sorts of stuff that I could network with, and we're still friends to this day. And I still open for them occasionally. And then I just loved it. It sucked me up. It takes away my stress. It relieves my anxiety. Not so great on the business side, but I'm learning. And then about 7-8 years ago, I started writing and had done some other writing, newspaper articles, magazine articles, when I was in my mid-20s. So picking that up and starting it's a lot easier to write for 3.5 minutes than it is for an article for a paper. So that's kind of where it's gone. And the more you do it, the better you get. I love going up on stage, which is kind of crazy because being an introvert is not that's not something that Todd does. But you get up there and you get this high or release of dopamine or whatever. And you just I got to do this. And then you finally get to the point, go, this is my home up here. I love it up here. So I decided 55, 56 that I was going to retire into music. That music was my retirement. So late last year, 23, I finally said the stress of the jobs and the insane things that you go through, but everybody goes through, not just me. I says, it's time. So I pulled the plug, put in for my Social Security, and the rest kind of is history. Continuing to write. This last year has been phenomenal for writing. A wonderful person. I have a wonderful person in my life, Miss Jane, and she is so supportive and so deep behind me on this and pushes me. And it has been this last, I think, end of September, we'll be together for a year, if I got the dates right.
Yeah.
And this last year has been phenomenal for creativity, because I literally got somebody there has my back. And that's great. I appreciate it, and I continue to do it. I have a car show on the Saturday prior to we'll do a plug. Virginia, Nebraska, they got their big car show. I'll be down there playing with another fellow. I don't remember who it is off the top of my head. Then I do yours. Might do some sound stuff on the first part of October. And then I got some other things coming up. A gig down at called Bottle and Barrel in Omaha. They do a Sunday acoustic thing. And I'm going to go down there for a couple, 3 hours and play a little music and schmooze with the people down there.
Absolutely. Well, and don't feel bad about plugging your music, man. I mean, that's part of why we have people on, especially people who are local or somewhat local, is we're wanting to pump the scene up. Like, there hasn't been a lot of, that I know of, podcasts in this area that are doing what we're doing. And so, yeah, by all means, Todd, if you got things coming up, or, and even after this, get a hold of us. Let us know what you got going on. I mean, once you've come on once, you become a Scratch the Vinyl legend with us. So we'll have you on again.
Todd, your story is exactly what we're trying to make this show about. We want to know what it's like, that that journey to, about music. And you're a great example of how you reconnected later in life and, found your way in it. And now you've found ways of giving it back. And man, we just love that. Thanks for everything that you're doing for us right now. And man, we wish the best for you on that.
I thank you. Cain and I, like he said, beginning, we did one last year.
Wow, yeah.
First on his other podcast, and just love the guy. Now I don't catch all his podcasts because I got a lot of stuff as a musician, and you've got 10,000 different things that's floating across your screen. I try to keep up on it. I don't always, but I've heard some snippets. I mean, he's a great host. He's become part of my musical family, and I appreciate those people so much. And you too, Mr. Randy. I mean,
that's how me and Cain connected. That's how me and Cain connected through music, wasn't it, buddy?
That's how most people, strangely, that's how a lot of people have connected with me over the years. Like when I talk to friends that I met in junior high and stuff, it was me turning them on to a band or me yapping about this or that. So yeah, music's been huge for me. I get to meet so many cool people. That's how we connected, Randy. That's how, Todd, that's kind of how we connected. I saw your videos on TikTok. You were doing some videos on TikTok and different things, and you just happened to be in some circles. And I think it's kind of one of those deals where then we just started talking. But let's talk about your TikTok a little bit, man. I mean, you've been you get on there, you play songs, and I think that's awesome. That's bold. I'm not even that bold, and I wish I was, because I'm an introvert also, believe it or not. And so why do you get on TikTok? Why do you do it? What are you doing when you do all that?
Well, the actual answer why I got on there. So Todd Guthrie Music on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. The whole reason I started doing it, actually started on Facebook, I don't know how long ago, 3 or 4 years ago, was because I needed a body of work. So if you go into somebody and say, Cain, let's say you had a bar, say, I am this is what I do, they're going to say, well, we need to see something. So what do? So there has to be a body of work. The first few videos were rough, and that's being kind to myself. And I got to the point I did one video, and I actually went back through and looked, because I do it on my phone because I just don't. That's what I have with me. I went back and was trying to find the version, the one that was the best. And I've got like 20 videos of the same song. It's not perfect. Oh shit, I messed up. And you go and you start another one and you start another one. It's like, you know what? And I do this at shows too. People, if you've seen one of my shows or been to one, if I mess up, and it's like, hey, if you ain't messing up, it ain't live music. And I got to the point where I was able to say, it's not perfect. I can't play like Glenn Campbell or James Taylor or anybody. Now I can play like me, and I'm pretty darn good at playing like me. So now it's just like, well, messed up, here we go. And just kind of and make a joke about it, because life is way too short to worry about this. So it's kind of fun. So, and it's like okay, for instance, it's like you going on a podcast and interviewing people. The first few are rough, absolutely. The first few times you went up, even though you were practiced and did music, it wasn't perfect. But the more you do it, I think it's you get better at it, yes, but I think you also get better at handling it when things totally go south. And it happens, And so it's just about practice. So now it's just like, I'm going to go on there, I'm going to have fun. And yeah, I mess up, and I don't do as many edits or retakes as I used to. A lot of that, I think, is competency in my playing and stuff, and going over a bit more. But yeah, it's all about practice. It's like playing a guitar. You know, you go on there, you mess up. Well, that didn't work. Let's try something different, or making a joke about it.
Well, and any musician that says that they don't screw up live is full of themselves, and they're lying to themselves, because the guitar, for instance, is a tool that you have to be at all the time. I tell my kids this when I try to train them. And even, I mean, you're going to see me screw up a few times at the benefit for sure. I might forget a lyric. I might do this. But you know what? Especially in a band setting, it's nice when you get into a tight, you know, you've got yourself, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
when you're in a band setting, it's nice because you get so tight with these guys that they clean up the mistakes that you make, or they see your
Absolutely.
cues, and it's a different type of thing. But hopefully I don't screw up too much come this benefit, right?
I'm sure you'll do great, Kane. It's like riding a bike, they say.
Well, I've certainly been practicing in the basement. My dogs are a tough audience, but they put up with me.
I hear that.
You know, something you said earlier, Todd, really struck me was you talked about being an introvert, and I don't know about you, Randy, because you are kind of like me. When you're in public, you put on the persona. It's not even a persona. You just kind of, you become this figure, right? Like almost playing a character of yourself. I know for me, being a lead man for a long time, and it's an outer body experience. When I get up there, it literally, I can almost see myself out of my body, looking out, you know, in to this thing that's happening, and it's like I become a different thing, like a machine. What's it like for you, Randy? Because I mean, I've always looked at you, and when I see you perform and do you know, you run big karaoke shows, I always think this guy is a party machine.
Yep. I was the shyest kid. I was an introvert. But this is the example of life right here. All of our stories is basically the same. We've used music, we've used those tools to help bring us out of our shell. And once we get a taste of that, there is a certain high to it, right? You know, being on stage, performing, you know, people talk how that totally terrify them, right? But for some reason, even though it's not our nature, we have found a way to cope with it. And it all it is just, it's helping us achieve our best potential. And the more, and you said it best, you know, the more practice you do, the more you get comfortable with it. You just start to deal with things, and you don't stress about it as much. And you know, everything we've talked about these are just ultimately great lessons in life.
They are, and all three of us seem to be pretty similar. Like our stories are different, right? But this is, once again, we can say till we're blue in the face, this is what Scratch the Vinyl is all about. It's bringing three very different people together with different paths, but yet we're all here collectively, and we all mesh together on music, and we can all agree, we can disagree, but we can all say one thing: music has made a big, huge impact in our lives and got us through the hardest of times, the best of times, and everything. And it's just it really is a blast. You know, the benefit that we're doing, I think that we've touched on that pretty good. I think that we've kind of got to know Todd a little bit when it comes to like your journey into why you do it. But I got to ask you a question, Todd, because another thing you said to me was, and Randy, was that you were in like pipe fitting. Is that what it was, or
Welding?
I was welding. Yeah.
Okay. See, I was an electrician for 20 years, and so, and I would do industrial jobs. So I can it was a hard life. I mean, people don't understand unless you do construction like these in the worst of the worst scenarios, just how stressful it is, especially, you know, like I was a foreman. And so then you get more and more stress, and I became a superintendent. And it's just like, the only thing that got me through was music. And then when the inception of podcasts, that's all that got me through all this stuff. Otherwise, I probably would have went completely insane. So, so I can only imagine what it was like, because I've been around guys like you. I've been on big jobs. I've been on, where people are doing the work that you were doing as a welder, and I know exactly the type of jobs that you were on. And so I can only imagine, but it's great that you got to do something you loved at retirement, right? Like you said, you know what, enough's enough. I'm going to do something that I want to do. Man, that's kind of a dream in itself.
Well, I told my one old boss, Paul Lehman. Paul Lehman was, I went in last 9 months to a year. I actually did, I went into retail. Big mistake, more stress than it was at a welder. But we got pretty close. We're still very close. And I told him, I said, this is what I'm going to do. And very supportive, always been supportive of me. As a musician and as an employee was always under him was always very supportive. And I told him, I says, I'm tired. I'm physically and mentally tired, probably more mentally tired than I am physically tired. But I says, I know that I can succeed at doing whatever because I've proven this. I've proven it as being a welder, and I've proven it going into the retail store, and within a couple 3 months, basically being his right-hand man, without the money or the title. But I was the go-to guy if something he wasn't in town because he lived out of town. I know I can succeed. I'm not worried about going and doing something else and succeeding. I've decided if I'm going to fail, I am going to fail on my terms, and I'm failing at something that I love to do. Win, lose, or draw, I don't care. I'm doing this for me because I love it. I love music. I got a great music family. But this is something that I want to do, and if I'm going to fail, by God, it's going to be on my terms, and not some corporate guys saying that you failed because of whatever. Because I didn't have the skill set or this or the training or the college or whatever. This is my business. This is what I love, and ultimately, go either way. It's my failure, but it's my failure. It's not like if you were my boss, then you failed yourself and you failed the boss. And did you really want to punch in for 50, 60 hours a week and pat you on the back, saying, "Hey, man, you did a great job, man," And that's basically all you really get after years of putting to a company. But this is my failure. This is my success. Totally on me.
Absolutely.
Todd, I know I am literally just right behind you in age-wise. And I could not have said that better. I say that all the time, especially most recently. And I've had these conversations with Cain. I've told him, we talk about doing a lot of projects and a lot of stuff we're doing with the podcast stuff. And we've been involved in some other ventures. And I tell him, I go, I'm just not letting the swings go so high and low anymore. I'm doing it on my terms. If it succeeds, I'm going to be ecstatic. But if I fail, I'm just going to fail on my own terms, and I'm okay with that. And I think that's just a lesson in life that we've learned. We've done a lot of things. We don't even have to have the same path, but we have the same experience. And what we've learned is, you can kill yourself for success. I mean, you can, in fact, what we talked about earlier, the tragedies of artists that die early and get caught up and all that. But there is a longevity if you're still around. And at some point, you have to be able to step back and enjoy that process and do it on your terms, in your clear mind. And it's okay if you fail, because you know what? It's life. You're trying. It's better than not doing anything at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
But did you, here's a question for you, Todd. Did you ever get the satisfaction of any of that, of doing the old Johnny Paycheck thing, looking him in the face and saying, "Take this job and shove it. You're no more." Anything?
Wow. So totally wanted to do it. So totally wanted to single finger salute. drop my shit and walk out. And that's absolutely, that is true. But, being raised by parents that grew up in the 30s and the 40s, and the set of standards that they basically instilled in me, and being respectful despite how big of an asshole people are, excuse the language. I honored when I quit and went to a different job, or when I retired, I honored the fact that I said, I'm done. Here's my 2 weeks. My last day is X. And I honored that. But that, to me, that's an honor thing. And, so many days, you walk outside, you want to scream in the sky and just say, not today. I'm going home.
Well, you did the honorable thing, and I was like a heathen, So
when you can say you need me more than I need you, and now I need myself to walk away.
Exactly.
Absolutely. One of the coolest things, I swear to God, that having not have to deal with the alarm clock at 4:35 in the morning, that's great. Not having to deal with the jerkwads at work and trying to get everybody caught up along with getting my stuff finished, it happened this winter, and the snow's coming through, and I think it was like January or something like that. Oh, the snow's coming through, and I'm going, oh man, I hope I have everything, and this and that. Got up, I made my coffee, the coffee's brewing away, and I sit down and I turn the TV on and kind of scroll over to see catch the weather on one of the channels. And I looked outside, looked out the window, the front window, it's snowing sideways. And I'm chuckling to myself, what? I ain't got to go out in this. I don't have to fight the idiots on the traffic. I don't have to hear them bitching at work because, oh my God, it's snowing. Oh, it took me so long to get here. It's like, yeah, dude, get up a little earlier.
You can finally enjoy the snow. That is one great thing about living life, like, the way you're able to live it now is you can finally enjoy the weather and not have to worry about driving in it all the time.
Oh, that was so cool. I sat there and had my coffee, set my coffee, and literally watched it snow. That was so cool. I thought, damn, this is cool. And, and the government's paying me to sit here and watch the snow, And so, because I was awesome. That was awesome. The foul weather gets bad, and Miss Jane lives in Bellevue, and so I go up there, and when she is soon to be retiring next month, and it's like, and I told her, I was up there, I says, man, she had a couple of days off, we did some stuff, and I says, man, this weather's coming in. I said, I don't know what I'm going to do, because you have things at the house to do, and but it's nothing like pressing like it used to be, and I says, man, as they're talking snow and ice and sleet and, God above coming down, walking down the interstate. And it's like, she says, well, just stay. You ain't got anything you have to do. I says, no. So it was great. I sit there, and it was a couple of days. They finally got the interstate opened, and it's like, well, guess I'm going home today. It's nice not to have that pressure.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're enjoying your retirement and doing a lot of great things, Todd. I wish we had more time to talk, but like all good things, this another good thing has to come to an end. So is there anything before we leave, Todd, that you want to, do you have a website or anything that you want to promote right now?
Okay. I have no website yet. I have to get on that. I got that in the electronic press kit. I do have to get on that. So that's the two things. You can find me at Todd Guthrie Music on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, on TikTok, and SoundCloud. And for the musicians out there, BandLab. So that is basically where I need to put all that stuff on a website. And my brother works for the University of Nebraska, does a lot of computer work, so I will probably be asking him to very nicely to help me get the electronic part of this stuff figured out.
Well, Todd, it's been great talking to you, and we look forward to seeing you down at Kelly's Pub on the 21st of July. And thanks for coming on Scratch the Vinyl.
Yeah.
Thank you, Randy. I can't wait to meet you, sir. I mean, this has been fun. I love doing stuff like this. It's always a great time. Cain, like I said, I think Cain's a fantastic host, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Well, we will talk to you again at the benefit. You guys get out there. Don't sit at home on that Sunday. Come out. It starts at 2 p.m. Come out to Kelly's Pub on July 21st and come party with us for a good cause. Talk to you guys next week. I'll hear on
Scratch the Vinyl.